Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're going to be taking a look at Bob Camblin.
Bob Camblin.
Yeah.
All right.
So Bob Camblin is an artist that you might not have heard of before, but I think by the end of this deep dive, you'll agree with me that his work is really something special.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dig into this one.
Yeah, and we've got a bit of a mystery on our hands here
Oh,
when we're trying to put together, who he was and what his art was all about.
okay.
So think of this deep dive like a treasure hunt, you know,
I like it.
piecing together clues from quotes. We've got exhibition lists. We've even got a YouTube video analyzing one of his paintings.
Wow. So we've got like a lot of different puzzle pieces to put together here.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that we get to see so many different sides of him through all these different sources.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just a straightforward biography. It's like we're getting to know him through a mosaic of different perspectives.
Yeah, and right from the start, you get a sense of his personality. One of the quotes we have from him says, "Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years, perhaps."
Hmm.
I mean, there's this dry wit that comes through immediately.
There's a playful skepticism, too. Like he's not taking himself or the world too seriously,
Yeah.
which I appreciate.
Exactly. So to help us decode all of this, I've got our expert here
Hey.
who's incredible at connecting the dots and finding those deeper meanings, especially when it comes to art and philosophy.
Oh, you're too kind.
So what jumps out at you initially when we start to unpack, who Bob Camblin was?
Well, the first thing that struck me was this intriguing contrast in his exhibition history.
Oh, okay.
So, on one hand, you see Camblin exhibiting in these really prestigious places, like the Art Institute of Chicago, the Whitney Museum, even internationally.
Wow, yeah, big-time venues.
Yeah, but then you see these show titles like Money is No Object Barter Show and The Next to the Last Garage Sale.
It's almost like he's playing with the art world a little bit, right?
Yeah.
He's got one foot in the establishment and one foot outside of it.
Yeah. Exactly. And it makes me wonder, was he trying to make a statement about the art market or was he just having fun with it? What do you think?
I'm leaning towards a bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another quote where he says, the artist today is the only free agent. He is not committed except so much as he desires it.
Hmm.
It seems like he was very conscious of defining his own path
Yeah.
and not being bound by expectations.
That's a great point. He was clearly a very independent spirit, and that comes through in both his art and his words.
Yeah.
And speaking of his words, some of these quotes really offer these amazing glimpses into his personality and his philosophy.
Okay.
Like this one, I will stick with common sense and try for the perfectly average view of the universe.
What do you make of that? To me, it suggests a certain humility, like he's not trying to be, some grand artistic genius or anything.
I think there's a rejection of extremes there too. Like he's seeking a middle path, a balanced perspective. And it reminds me of some of the core principles of Zen Buddhism, which we'll be exploring a little bit later on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this tension between success in the traditional art world
Right.
and this independent, almost rebellious spirit.
Yeah.
And now you're bringing Zen into the mix.
Yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah.
Can we dig a bit deeper into his biography before we get into the Zen connection?
Absolutely. So his bio tells us that he was part of the Fulbright program, which took him to Rome and Milan.
Oh, wow.
And his work was featured in major exhibitions and publications like Time and Art News. So, clearly achieved a good deal of recognition and success within the traditional art world.
But then you read quotes like, "Your ego, hidden and following you as gracefully as a goldfish's shit folded under the waving tail. How neat that thought is."
Right.
I mean, that's not exactly your typical artist statement, is it?
It's not, there's this sharp wit and a detachment from ego that's really fascinating.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what he really thought about fame and recognition. It seems like he was more interested in exploring his own ideas and pushing his own creative boundaries.
Exactly. And that's where the Zen connection starts to become even more intriguing.
Okay.
So he doesn't explicitly say he's a Zen Buddhist or anything like that,
Right.
but there are definitely echoes of those principles in his words and his art.
So how do we see that connection playing out in his actual artwork?
Mm.
When we have that watercolor, we don't have the foggiest idea
Right.
that's been analyzed through a Zen lens by a few different sources.
That's a great place to start, I think.
Yeah.
But before we dive into the analysis,
Yeah.
can you maybe paint a picture for our listener? Describe what you see in the painting.
Okay, so imagine this right in the center. There's a deer skull,
Okay.
but it's not presented in a creepy or morbid way.
Okay.
It's almost peaceful and intertwined with the skull are these roots or veins, like they're growing right through it.
That's interesting. You've already hit on a key element that resonates with Zen philosophy, the juxtaposition of life and death, decay and renewal.
And then in the background, there are these sharp geometric shapes, almost like shards of glass, but they're rendered in these muted earthy tones.
Okay.
And swirling around the skull and the geometric shapes are these ethereal, almost cloud-like forms that seem to connect everything together. The overall effect is one of movement and change. Like things are constantly shifting and transforming.
That's a really vivid description. I think you've captured the essence of what makes this painting so compelling. The way it blends realism with abstraction, organic forms with geometric shapes, stillness with movement.
It really draws you in.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
Yeah.
It really draws you in. It makes you think. Now, the source material mentions some potential art historical influences here, like surrealism and symbolism.
Right.
Could you give us a little background on those movements and how they might be relevant to Camlin's work?
Absolutely. So surrealism was all about tapping into the subconscious mind, exploring dreams and irrationality. And then symbolism used imagery and allegory to convey deeper meanings. So you can definitely see echoes of both of those movements in We Don't Have the Foggiest Idea.
Yeah.
Particularly in the dreamlike atmosphere and the use of symbolic imagery like the skull and the roots.
Right, and then there's the mention of Veneta's paintings.
Yeah.
I have to admit I'm not too familiar with those. Can you give us a quick explainer?
Of course, the Veneta's paintings were popular in the 16th and 17th centuries, and they were essentially meditations on the fleeting nature of life and the inevitability of death. They often featured objects like skulls, candles, and hourglasses.
Okay.
All symbols of mortality and the passage of time.
So in a way, Camblin is picking up on this very old artistic tradition.
Yeah.
And reinterpreting it through a more modern lens.
Exactly. And I think the YouTube analysis we have brings up another interesting connection. The idea that the painting can be seen as a visual representation of the Zen concept of mu, or emptiness.
Okay.
Now, this might sound a little abstract, but the idea is that everything is in constant flux. Nothing is permanent, and clinging to fixed ideas or identities only leads to suffering.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that connects to the painting.
Yeah.
The swirling forms the juxtaposition of life and death, the sense of constant movement and change. It all points to this idea of impermanence.
Right, and the video even draws a connection to hexagram 18 from the I Ching.
Oh, wow.
An ancient Chinese text,
Okay.
which is called Work on What Has Been Spoiled. It's about confronting decay as a necessary part of transformation,
Okay.
accepting that things fall apart so that new things can emerge.
I'm really struck by how Camblin seems to be weaving together all these different threads of thought. Western art history, Eastern philosophy, ancient wisdom traditions.
Yeah.
It's like he's creating this rich tapestry of meaning.
Right.
That's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally resonant.
I completely agree, and it all comes back to that quote of his fool the eye, fool the mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a clever saying, it's a key to understanding his entire artistic approach.
So he's not just trying to create pretty pictures.
Right.
He's trying to challenge our perceptions to shake us out of our habitual ways of seeing and thinking.
Exactly. He wants us to look deeper, to question our assumptions, and to see the world with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And I think the Zen influence is really key here.
Okay.
Because Zen is all about cultivating awareness, being present in the moment,
Right.
and seeing things as they truly are without the filters of our preconceptions.
It's like he's inviting us to embark on a journey of self-discovery through his art.
Yeah.
To explore the hidden depths of our own minds and to connect with something larger than ourselves.
And that's where his personal writings become even more illuminating.
Okay.
They offer these fascinating glimpses into his own process of self-discovery, his struggles, his insights, and his humor.
And it's not just about personal growth, is it? There are definitely some social and political undercurrents in his work and his writings as well.
That's right. Remember the quote where he says that historians love artistic madness? When it isn't alive and well and attending meetings,
Yeah.
it seems like he's poking fun at the way society tends to romanticize the tortured artist while simultaneously marginalizing those who challenge the status quo.
It's like he's saying, don't just admire the rebels of the past.
Right.
Be a rebel in the present. And that really resonates with me.
Yeah.
We need more artists and thinkers who are willing to challenge conventional wisdom and push for positive change.
Absolutely. And there's another quote where he compares artists to ecologists fighting for balance in a world gone wrong. It suggests a deep concern for the state of humanity,
Yeah.
and a belief in art's potential to heal and restore.
So it's not just about aesthetics or self-expression.
Right?
It's about using art as a tool for social and environmental justice.
Yeah.
It's about making a difference in the world.
And I think that's what makes Camblin's work so relevant today.
Mm.
We're living in a time of immense challenges.
Yeah, for sure.
But also a time of tremendous opportunity for transformation. And his work reminds us that we all have the capacity to be agents of change to create a more just and sustainable world.
So how do we even begin to unravel what his legacy is?
That's a good question.
He was successful, but also outside the mainstream. He was deeply philosophical, but also playful and irreverent.
I think that's exactly what makes his legacy so fascinating.
Okay.
He defies easy categorization. He's not just a painter or a writer or a philosopher. He's all of those things and more. He's a true original.
And his work seems to transcend time. It feels both timeless and incredibly relevant to the challenges we face today.
Exactly. In a world that often feels fragmented and chaotic, he offers a vision of interconnectedness, resilience, and hope. He reminds us that even in decay there is beauty, even in impermanence there is meaning, and even in the face of overwhelming challenges there is always the possibility of transformation.
And he does it all with this incredible sense of humor and playfulness. He's serious about his art, but he's not afraid to have fun with it. It's that combination of depth and lightness that makes his work so compelling.
It's like he's saying, life is a mystery, so let's explore it with curiosity and joy. Let's laugh at the absurdity of it all while also recognizing its profound beauty.
I think that's a wonderful way to sum up Camblin's spirit. But there's still so much more to uncover.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about how our listener can experience his work firsthand. So where can our listeners go to see Camblin's art for themselves? I mean, we've talked about those big-name museums, but is his work still out there to be found?
It's a bit of a treasure hunt, which feels fitting for Camblin, doesn't it?
Yeah.
His biography mentions places like the Dallas Museum of Fine Arts, the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and the Art Institute of Chicago.
Yeah.
Some pieces might still be on display there or tucked away in their archives, and of course, who knows what's ended up in private collections over the years.
It really adds another layer to this whole deep dive, right? Like the exploration continues even after our episode is over. Listeners can go out and become art detectives,
Yeah.
trying to track down a Camblin original.
And even if you can't see his paintings in person, his words are incredibly powerful on their own. Those quotes we've been discussing, they're like little koans. Those paradoxical sayings from Zen Buddhism, they really make you stop and think.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's not just the content of the quotes, but his style, too. That blend of haiku-like brevity with those stream of consciousness moments.
Right.
And he keeps using that phrase. And yet,
Oh, yeah.
it's like he's always challenging himself and us
Yeah.
to look beyond the easy answers.
His writing is just as unconventional as his art, isn't it? And remember what he said about syntax and how it limits our thinking. It's as if he's creating a new language.
Oh, right. Wow.
One that's more intuitive, more in tune with the way the mind actually works.
Which brings us back to that idea of fool the eye, fool the mind.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think it's not just about trickery or visual illusions. It's about waking us up to the fact that reality is much more fluid and multifaceted than we usually perceive it to be.
Exactly. It's about breaking free from rigid thinking and opening ourselves up to new possibilities. And that's what's so exciting about a deep dive like this. It's not just about gathering information.
Yeah.
It's about sparking a sense of wonder, a desire to keep exploring.
And I think Campbell would have loved that.
Yeah.
He seemed to be all about encouraging people to tap into their own creativity,
Right.
their own unique way of seeing the world. Maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this, the realization that we're all artists in our own way.
It's about recognizing that creativity isn't limited to painting or writing.
Right.
It can manifest in how we solve problems, how we connect with others, how we approach life itself.
It's about bringing that same sense of curiosity and playfulness that we see in Camblin's work to everything we do. And speaking of Camblin, I think I've saved the perfect quote for our grand finale.
All right, let's hear it.
He said, "The gate stays open, the fence is broken. He keeps searching, but does not know the size of his quarry, yet he has faith. He looks in all directions if he could only see all around all at once."
What a powerful image. It speaks to the courage it takes to pursue a creative path.
Yeah.
You're not always sure where you're going, but you have faith that the journey itself will lead you somewhere worthwhile.
And it's a reminder that there's always more to discover. Even if you think you've figured something out, there's always another layer, another perspective, and yet waiting to be uncovered.
It's a beautiful invitation to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep creating.
So to our listeners, I say this: let Bob Camlin's work be a source of inspiration, explore his art, ponder his words, and most importantly, cultivate your own unique creative vision. The world needs your art, your insights, your unique way of seeing.
And remember, the joy of a deep dive is the ongoing exploration. Who knows what other hidden gems you might uncover in your own life and in the world around you.
Happy hunting, and until next time, keep diving deep.